in the state of ignorance, we lose ourselves in this world. Like the water falling on the top of the mountain, flows down, disperses. So do we lose ourselves in this world. As if there are two faces of reality. There is one, this non-dual reality. And then, on account of this ignorance, the same non-dual self, non-dual Atma, Advaya Atma, we get a fractured vision of subject and object. We think we are a limited individual with all the emotional drives and insecurities. Because of being limited, we get this sense of insecurity and emotional drives. And we also find there is the world outside, objective world, which responds to our emotional drives and insecurities. And then this interaction with the world, the action, karma, result, all this happens. We have this awareness of subject-object existence, so to say, and we have firm conviction in it that this is absolutely true. This Bheda Darshana, perception of duality, perception of subject and object relationship is absolutely true. And that's what leads to samsara. And all this is happening in that non-dual self. But the Muni, the meditative person, who is Jnata, Vijnata, who has known the self, his condition or his example or what his self can be compared to is Yathodakam Shuddhe Shuddham Asiktam. Like pure water poured into mass of pure water. It becomes one with it. So becomes the self of a knowing one. In case of ignorant one, he or she loses the self in the world. But the knowing one regains his or her real nature. And that is why the Shuddhi, purity, is most important. We have to first purify ourselves if we want to become one with God, if we want to realize God. So one Swamiji used to say, we prepare ourselves according to whom we are going to meet or where we are going to go. We are going to an office, we dress in a certain fashion. For a marriage, we dress in a certain fashion. We are going to relatives, we prepare ourselves in a certain manner. We are going to the temple, we prepare ourselves in a certain manner. And we want to come face to face with God, who is purity itself. So how much pure we have to become? Unless we are absolutely pure, we cannot come face to face with God. And purity is nothing but getting rid of these emotional drives in the form of desires, hatred, fears. Freeing ourselves from these emotional drives, that is purity. When we become pure, we come face to face with God. Then we shall become one with God and regain our real nature, like that pure water which regains its real nature by getting merged in the pure water. To get this purity, we have to first get hold of our emotional drives, keep them under check, and think of God in whatever form, in whichever way. There is no purifier which can purify us better than the thought of God. Thought of God is the best of purifiers. So we should think of God, repeat His name, keep the emotional drives under check. Try to dedicate all our actions unto God, the results of actions unto God. This is the way we can purify ourselves. This Vedanta lays great emphasis on purity. Unless we are pure, because God is pure, God is purity itself. How can we think of realizing God unless we become pure? Just as a beggar is not let in a rich man's house, but the same beggar dresses in a particular fashion and goes, immediately that person will be let in. So, in the presence of purity itself, which is God, impure soul has no entry. So, we have to purify ourselves. And then we can come face to face with God. So, that's what we saw in our last class. That is where that section ended. Now we are starting a new Valli, second Valli of the second Adhyaya. In the introduction, Bhagavan Bhashyakara says that nothing new is going to be told here. The teaching is already given, imparted. But same teaching will be imparted in a different fashion, in a different way. The upaya will be different. Teaching will be same. Now why is this Shruti telling us again and again the same thing in different ways? That also we saw in our last class. Shruti is our Hitaishi, is interested in our own good 1,000 times more than our own parents. That is the Shruti. Shruti wants us to know our real nature, the nature of self. Shruti wants us to know. But it has one dilemma, so to say. We as human beings, we have 5 senses of knowing. And we have this mind or antahkarana, mind, intellect, whatever you call it. All these, they only can know the objective world. That is their limitation. Especially the senses. Senses only can know what is happening outside. They cannot know what is happening inside. Mind also has its own limitations. It can only know in terms of names and forms and all that. And the self that Shruti is going to teach or has been teaching is beyond name and form. So that is one point. On one side, that is the truth. And the other side, we have no other means than this mind of knowing. Mind is the only instrument that we have of knowing. And this mind has no capacity to know the self. This is the dilemma of the Shruti. We, her children, we only have mind as our chief instrument of knowledge. Without that, we cannot know. And this mind has no capacity to know the self. And that is why Shruti, in various ways, tries to tell us our real nature, that we may realize our real nature and be free from this samsara and attain that infinite bliss. So Shruti is telling again and again in different ways, in different forms, the same truth. So here the mantra is Purameka Dashadvaram Ajasya Vakrachetasa Anusthaya Na Shochati Vimuktascha Vimuchyate Etadvaitata. So in one of the earlier Vallis, there was a simile. This body was compared to a ratha, to a chariot, and the self to the rathi or the owner of the chariot. Here there is another simile. Shruti says there is a city of 11 gates. Puram Ekadasha Dvaram. There is a city of 11 gates. Now, where is this city? In which country, continents, or whatever? Where is this? Shruti says, no, it is here only. Our own body is a city. Sharirapura. Every body is a city. How can you compare body to a city? Now see, first, a city has gates. to enter or exit the city. Then it has the gatekeepers, it has chieftains, it has the minister, and it has various systems which function in a coordinated way. They do not hinder each other. In a coordinated way, the systems in a city work. So also, this body has gates. Shruti says Ekadashadvaram. There are 11 gates to this city of body, so to say. We are aware of the 10 eyes, ears, nose, like that. One more is kind of secret gate that is on top of the head called Brahmarandra. Including that, there are 11 gates, including Brahmarandra. So this, our body, which is compared to a city, has 11 gates. And the Dwarapalas, or the gatekeepers, are the sense organs. Then they have Adhishtatri Devatas, the deities which control. And various systems are there in the body. Amazing systems. In a most coordinated way, without obstructing each other, they work. Just like the systems in a city work. And that's why this body is compared to the city. Ekadashadvaram Puram. Now there is a maxim. Samhatasya pararthatvat. Whatever is samhata, a conglomerate, a combination, it always works for somebody else. It exists for somebody else. A stable, chair, these are all compositions, combinations, conglomerates. These don't live for themselves, these don't exist for themselves, these don't serve themselves. They serve somebody else, who is a Chetana, who is a conscious entity. There is a house. The house doesn't serve itself. It is meant for the person who lives in the house. So also there is city. The city doesn't serve itself, it serves its king. And so also is the human body. This is also a samhata. It is a conglomerate. It doesn't serve itself. It is not meant to serve itself. It is meant to serve an entity, the king of the body. The very fact that it is a conglomerate, it cannot serve itself. Its very existence is meant to serve an entity which is distinct from it. So what is this relation between the king of the body and the body, or the king of the city and the city? What is the equation between them? And the equation is the king is entirely distinct from the city. In an old city may have a young king. Half of the city may be taken over by another king. The king doesn't lose half of his body. The king may forsake the city and renounce and go away. Still he doesn't die. The city may get destroyed. The king is not destroyed. The king is independent, distinct from the city. So also, the king of this body should be entirely distinct and independent of the body. In common parlance, we say, this body serves me. I am the king whom this body serves. But what is my nature? What is the nature of this I, and what is the equation of this I with this body? And here we get the equation. Just as the king is independent and distinct from the city, so also I, the king whom this body serves, must be independent and distinct from this body. And this body includes mind also, mind and antahkarana, mind also, mind, intellect all together, antahkarana also. So mind, senses and body all together, this conglomerate. It serves me, no doubt. But the very fact that it serves me points that I am distinct and independent of this conglomerate called body. And Shruti says, what exactly is the nature of this king of the body? It is distinct and independent. We can understand that by logic, just as the king is distinct from the city. The house, owner of the house is distinct from the house. House may collapse, owner will live. So also, this body being a conglomerate, it has, I should be distinct and independent of it, no doubt about it. But what is my real nature? That Shruti tells, Ajasya avakrachetasaha. The real nature of the king of this body is Aja and avakracheta. Aja means unborn. That is sarva vikriya rahita. There is birth, then there is growth, there is decay, there is death. All these are not there in real me, in my real nature. It is Aja. And avakracheta, its word, it means undiminishing consciousness. Actually, literally, it will mean uncrooked awareness, so to say. Undiminishing consciousness. My consciousness, the consciousness of my real nature, is undiminishing. It never fades. It never diminishes. Like the suns. Sun is illuminating or illumining, and it is ever shining. Earth moves, then we have night and all that. But sun in itself is ever shining. It never diminishes. So also, our real nature, the real nature of the self is ever shining, ever knowing. During waking state, it illumines waking objects. Dream state, it illumines dream objects. In deep sleep state, it will illumine the ignorance. But it is always there, always illumining. That is our real nature. It is Aja and avakracheta. It is unborn, free from all kinds of modifications, and ever aware, ever conscious, ever shining. We don't know it now, we don't realize it now. Now we think that we are one with this body. So there are some people who are so attached to their houses. If someone drives a nail, they think that the nail is being driven in their body. Our condition is like that. We have identified with this body and we think we are one with this body. But Shruti is trying to tell us, and that's why Shruti is taking all the pains in different ways. It is trying to tell us that you cannot be one with this body. This body is a conglomerate. It's a combination. It has to serve an entity which is distinct from it, independent of it. And you are that entity which this body serves, and you must be distinct from the body. You must be independent of the body. And your nature is you are unborn, free from all modifications, and ever aware, ever conscious. That alone can be your real nature. That is what Shruti is trying to tell us. She's trying to make us understand, make us realize our real nature, which now we have mixed up with this body and mind and all that. Anusthayana shochati. Anusthana means dhyanam. In this context, it will mean dhyanam, that is meditation on the self, meditation on our own real nature, which is Aja and Avakracheta, with a view, with an objective, to realize our identity with it. To discover our real identity, we meditate on our own real nature. That is Anusthaya. And when one realizes one's identity with one's real nature, na shochati, one goes beyond shoka, beyond grief, beyond all bhaya, fear, beyond all grief. And vimuktascha vimuchyate. When one realizes one's real nature, while living in the body itself, one becomes free from avidya kama karma, that is ignorance, desires and actions. It's called the jivan mukta. And vimuchyate, when the body falls, again that jiva doesn't have to assume another body. So there is again vimuchyate. Twice it is used. Vimuktascha vimuchyate. While living, that jiva is free, jivan mukta, and after falling off of the body also, no more assuming body, so videha mukti. Jivan mukti and videha mukti both are spoken of here. Vimuktascha vimuchyate. Etadvaita, this is that. This is what you had asked. Nachiketa had asked. So that is what Shruti is telling through Yamadharmaraya. That you are not this body. You are distinct, independent. Now one doubt may arise that I have my own self, my real nature which is distinct from this body. It is unborn and it is ever awake and ever shining and ever knowing. What about others? Does every body have one self? Every individual soul has his or her real nature in a distinct self, and all these selves are distinct from each other. Is it so? This doubt might come. Actually, there is a philosophy called Sankhya philosophy which believes actually. They call the self as Purusha. And they said as many bodies, so many Purushas are there. They also believe that Purusha is Aja and Avakracheta. It is unborn. And there is, because of ignorance, one takes oneself to be body. All that is, they also accept, but according to them, Purushas are many. They believe in plurality of selves. And this plurality is absolutely real. Paramartha Satya. Like that, those philosophies are there. They are called Sankhyas. So that doubt might come. To offset that doubt, Shruti next mantra it says, Hamsha Shuchashat Vasurantarikshasat Hota Vedashadathir Duronasat Nrishad Varasad Ritasat Vyomasadabja Goja Rataja Adraja Ritam Brahata. It's a long mantra. But the gist of the mantra is that this self, which is our real nature, which is everyone's real nature, has become or is the sun, the wind, the fire, the natural elements that we see, that our self itself has become all these. It is the Atithi, the guest that comes to our house. It is what water animals. It lists many things. Water animals which are born in water. It is plants which come from Prithvi, Goja. It is the rivers which come from the mountains. It is in men, it is in deities, devas, Nrishat, Varasat. Our own self has become all these. Having become all these, has it changed itself? They say Ritam, Avitatasvabhava. Without any change in itself. This our own self has become all this. It has pervaded the whole world. It is Brihat, it is all pervading. It wants to offset the idea that there are many selves. Shruti wants to offset the idea that there are many selves. There is only one self. It is the self of all. It is myself and it is also the self of the sun. It itself has become sun and wind and fire and rivers and trees, whatever, wherever our eyes fall, it has become everything. So these are the 2 points. Our real nature is distinct from this body and mind. It is unborn and of undiminishing consciousness, ever awake. And that very real nature of ours is the self of all. It is Sarvatma. It is the substratum of the entire creation. This completes, so to say, the nature, the real nature of truth or ourselves. To say, just say that we are distinct from body is only half truth. We are distinct from body. We are pure, no doubt. And our real nature, we are also the self of all. Then only it is complete. So this is what the teaching of the Shruti is. Anyway, next, I don't know whether we may not have class next Sunday. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.